Title: The Takedown at Gate 47. Savannah Cole stood tall in her crisp white blouse and dark jeans. Boarding pass for seat 1A clutched in one hand and a leather tote in the other. Her expression was calm, measured, but there was an edge in her eyes that warned she had no patience for nonsense. The terminal at Gate 47 buzzed with pre-boarding announcements, crying toddlers, and the mechanical whir of airport machinery. But that buzz dulled the moment she stepped into line. Whispers rose like steam from boiling water. A subtle shift in the air. Heads turned, not out of admiration, but suspicion. Not one person asked who she was. They'd already decided. "Ma'am," a gate agent snapped, stepping out from behind the podium. Her eyes flicked over Savannah's dark skin, ignored the boarding pass in her hand, and narrowed. "I'm going to need you to step aside." Savannah blinked slowly. "I'm in Group 1. First class." I said step aside. The voice was firmer now, louder, as if volume would make the injustice more legitimate. She hadn't said a single word out of place, yet security was already on their way. Two uniformed officers cut through the crowd, hands on their belts. The passengers parted for them like water splitting for stone. No questions, no curiosity, only confirmation. Because people like Savannah didn't look like seat 1A. Not to them. She exhaled softly, stepped back, and murmured, "Y'all really want to do this today?" "Ma'am, don't make this harder than it needs to be." The taller of the two officers reached for her arm. Savannah didn't flinch. From her tote bag, she slowly pulled out a slim leather folder. Not fast, not sharp, but with the precision of someone trained to measure every single move. She flipped it open. The taller officer froze. The badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Federal Aviation Oversight Division. Gold seal. Red ink. Clearance level. A3, National Aviation Auditor. It might as well have been a bomb. Silence rippled outward from their small circle like a detonation shockwave. The agent who had dismissed her visibly paled. The younger officer took a full step back, his jaw slack. "I'm not just a first-class passenger," Savannah said quietly. "I'm the lead federal auditor assigned to inspect this airline's compliance with Title VI discrimination protocols, among others. And you just failed in front of 77 witnesses." Her voice never rose, but it carried, sharp, clean, and terrifying in its calm. The supervisor, who had just emerged from the terminal office, dropped his clipboard when he caught sight of the badge. "I'm placing this flight under federal hold," Savannah continued, stepping forward, "until I've completed a formal statement and passenger interviews. No one boards, not even the pilots." Someone gasped. Another person started filming, and that's when the dominoes began to fall. The courtroom, once subdued in its sterile ritual of motions and objections, now felt like the eye of a coming storm. On the monitor beside the witness stand, the feed from Gate 47 blazed into life with crystal clarity. There was no static, no ambiguity, only the raw, damning footage. A hush fell over the room as the screen played. There was the young woman, Camille, poised, composed, boarding pass in hand, glancing at her phone. No aggression, no raised voice, no violation, just a quiet resolve, the kind bred from years of knowing she had to walk 10 paces straighter than everyone else to get half as far. And then the gate agent, Heather, stepped into frame, smirking, brushing Camille aside with a scoff. The words played clearly, captured by the overhead mic. "That's economy down there, sweetheart." Gasps rose from the gallery. Heather hadn't even looked at the ticket. But the video didn't stop. It continued, each second more damning than the last. Camille, trying to explain. Heather, waving over airport security. Then came the moment that would hang in history. Camille, silent, held out her phone. One word left her lips. "Verify." The screen behind the judge went black for a second before cutting to the next footage. A secondary camera feed, security clearance level 4, that no civilian should have accessed. And yet there it was. An internal memo with the FAA insignia and the seal of the U.S. Department of Transportation, Executive Evaluation, Federal Behavioral Compliance Division. And Camille's full name and ID code were typed at the top, followed by a directive. Full clearance. Do not impede. Observation in progress. Subject is undercover federal compliance officer. The courtroom erupted. A dozen people stood at once. One juror dropped her notepad. Heather's face went pale, her smirk now a ghost of panic. Even the judge's gavel struck the wood 3 times before silence returned. And then Camille stood, not a victim anymore, but a weapon honed by years of quiet professionalism. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "I did not seek conflict. I sought truth. But since it came to me wearing a badge of arrogance and a uniform of prejudice, I chose to document it." Her voice carried like thunder through the marble hall. "What happened to me wasn't a misunderstanding. It was institutional, rehearsed, repeated." Judge Hanley leaned forward, hands clasped. "And you're telling this court you were acting under federal directive?" Camille gave a single nod. "You can verify with Director Owens at the Department of Transportation. The number is on file. I have it memorized if needed." No one challenged her. No one dared. The judge turned to the airline's legal counsel, who suddenly looked like they'd swallowed glass. "I advise you to confer with your client immediately," Judge Hanley said with measured force. "Because what I'm seeing borders not just on discrimination, but obstruction, willful negligence, and potential endangerment of a federal operative in active duty." Heather tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. The prosecutor, who had spent the better part of the morning treating Camille like an inconvenience, now couldn't meet her gaze. And then, as if destiny enjoyed poetic timing, the courtroom doors swung open. A man in a charcoal suit walked in, flanked by 2 plainclothes agents. His badge flashed gold under the light. Federal Aviation Oversight Division. "Your Honor," he announced, "we're here to place Ms. Heather Ellison and 2 other airline staff under federal investigation for interference in an authorized audit." It wasn't a request. Heather backed away instinctively, but it was too late. One of the agents stepped forward and gently, yet firmly, turned her around. The handcuffs clicked, metal against skin. The bailiff didn't object. Neither did the judge. Camille turned to the gallery, locking eyes with a group of passengers who had watched her humiliation that day, and said nothing. Some of them looked away. Others couldn't. But one little girl in the second row, clutching a first-class boarding pass of her own, looked up at Camille with wide, awed eyes. For the first time in the trial, Camille allowed herself a small smile. Not a vengeance, but a victory. Earned, quiet, powerful. Outside, the press had already gathered. By the time Camille stepped onto the courthouse steps, the headlines were writing themselves. "Undercover Auditor Exposes Airline Discrimination." "Federal Sweep at JFK. Compliance Officer Humiliated, Then Vindicated." But Camille didn't need the cameras. Her work was done. She had walked through fire and come out the other side holding the torch.